So, here we sit, two terrible children of two terrible fathers.
Two terrible children of two terrible fathers. That's how Tyrion describes them. Himself and Daenerys sitting across from each other in the Great Pyramid of Meereen, drinking wine and sizing each other up like two poker players who haven't decided yet whether to fold or go all in. They've only just met. Tyrion was dragged here in chains. Daenerys could have him killed with a word. And yet somehow, in the middle of that tension, something remarkable happens. The two smartest people in the room start talking honestly, and one of them says something that changes the entire trajectory of the show. This is the scene where Daenerys Targaryen tells Tyrion Lannister,
"I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel."
And it sounds, in the moment, like the most inspiring thing anyone has ever said in this world. But here's what I want to argue. This is also the moment where everything begins to go wrong. Because breaking the wheel is a beautiful idea, but it's an idea without a plan. And in Game of Thrones, ideas without plans tend to end in fire. So let's start with how this conversation builds, because it doesn't begin with the wheel, it begins with a test. The whole scene is structured as a mutual audition. Two people who could change the world if they work together, but who first need to decide whether the other is worth the risk. Tyrion has just arrived in Meereen after killing his father and fleeing across the narrow sea. He was kidnapped by Jorah Mormont, dragged through half of Essos, nearly killed by stone men, sold to a slaver, and forced to fight in the pits. And now he's standing before a woman who has every reason to have him executed, a Lannister standing in front of the last Targaryen. Daenerys wants to know why she shouldn't kill him, and Tyrion, being Tyrion, flips the question.
We have only just met. It's too soon to know if you deserve my service.
The audacity of that line, a fugitive dwarf standing before a woman with dragons, telling her she needs to prove herself to him, is pure Tyrion, but it also sets the tone for the scene. This isn't a queen receiving a subject. This is two equals testing each other, and both of them pass. You see, Tyrion then lays out Daenerys' political reality with brutal honesty. He tells her that House Targaryen is gone. Not a single person who shares her blood is alive to support her. The Starks are gone too, he says, because their two terrible fathers saw to that. The Lannisters will never back her. Stannis won't either, because his entire claim rests on hers being illegitimate. That leaves the Tyrells, not impossible, but not enough. He's essentially telling her, you have dragons and an army, but you have no allies in Westeros. You're a conqueror with no political base. Now, most people hearing this would be rattled. Most people would start negotiating, compromising, looking for deals. Daenerys does something different. She steps back from the entire framework Tyrion has just laid out and rejects it completely.
Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, Stark, Tyrell. They're all just spokes on a wheel.
This one's on top, then that one's on top, and on it spins, crushing those on the ground. I mean, sit with that metaphor for a moment. It's elegant, it's powerful, and it's devastatingly accurate. The entire history of Westeros is a cycle of great houses fighting for dominance, while the small folk, the farmers, the merchants, the mothers and children, get crushed beneath the weight of their ambitions. Robert's rebellion didn't free anyone, it just replaced one family on top with another. The War of the Five Kings didn't solve anything. It just ground millions of ordinary people into dust, while lords argued over who gets to sit on a chair made of swords. Daenerys isn't wrong. The wheel is real, and it does crush people. The thing is, Tyrion hears this and responds with something that sounds like agreement, but is actually a warning. It's a beautiful dream, stopping the wheel. You're not the first person who's ever dreamt it. He's telling her, gently, that this isn't a new idea. Other leaders have talked about breaking cycles of power. Other revolutionaries have promised to tear down the old system and build something better. And they've all failed, or worse, they've become the very thing they set out to destroy. Tyrion knows history. He knows that the road to tyranny is often paved with the rhetoric of liberation. And then Daenerys delivers the line that defines her entire arc. I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel, right? On the surface, this is thrilling. It's the moment a leader stops playing by the rules and announces she's going to rewrite them. Stopping the wheel would mean pausing the cycle, a temporary fix. Breaking it means ending the system itself. No more feudalism, no more rotating dynasties, no more great houses crushing the small. It's a revolutionary statement, and Tyrion is visibly moved by it. Well, but here's what the scene is really doing underneath that inspirational surface, and it's easy to miss. Daenerys is describing a goal, a magnificent, sweeping, world-changing goal. But she never describes a plan. She never says what replaces the wheel once it's broken. She never explains what governance looks like in a world without the great houses competing for power. She just says, "I'll break it. I'll fix everything. Trust me." And that absence, the gap between the dream and the execution, is the crack that will eventually swallow her entire story. Look, there's another hidden detail in this speech that most people miss. Daenerys includes her own house in the wheel.
Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, Stark, Tyrell.
She says Targaryen alongside Lannister, Baratheon, Stark, and Tyrell. That's significant. It means she's aware, at least intellectually, that her own family is part of the problem. The Targaryens conquered Westeros with fire and blood. They ruled through fear and dragons. They produced the Mad King. And Daenerys is saying, I know that. I know my family's history of absolute rule is part of this cycle. That self-awareness makes the speech more compelling. But it also makes what happens later more tragic, because Daenerys will eventually repeat every mistake her ancestors made, only with better justifications. Technically, Daenerys has already tried to break a wheel before in Slaver's Bay. She liberated the slaves. She overthrew the masters. She tore down an entire social order and put herself on top. And it was a disaster. The masters fought back. The sons of the Harpy terrorized the streets. The economy collapsed. The freed slaves had no system to replace the one she'd destroyed. Meereen became a city of chaos, violence, insurgency, political vacuum. She's sitting in a pyramid built by slaves, ruling a city that's falling apart around her. And she's telling Tyrion she wants to do the same thing on a continental scale.
I am not here to be Queen of the Ashes.
She believes her intentions are so pure that the outcome will be different this time. That absolute rule backed by dragons will bring peace, not destruction. And the fact that she can't see the power vacuums she's already created tells you everything about where this road is heading. Actually, this is where the dictator versus deliverer tension begins. The speech mirrors the rhetoric of every revolutionary in history who believed they were superior to their predecessors. Daenerys genuinely believes her intentions are so pure, her vision so righteous, that she can wield absolute power without becoming corrupted by it. She'll be the exception. She'll be the one who breaks the pattern instead of repeating it. But the show is already planting the seeds of her downfall in this very moment, because a leader who believes she alone can fix a broken system is a leader who will eventually justify anything, including the destruction of an entire city, in pursuit of that fix. But Tyrion's reaction is equally important and equally tragic. He calls it,
It's a beautiful dream. Stopping the wheel.
and he means it. Tyrion is genuinely impressed. He wants to believe in Daenerys. After years of serving monsters, Joffrey, Cersei, even his own father, he wants to believe that someone can come along and change the rules instead of just playing by them. He spent his entire life trying to make broken systems work from the inside. And here's a woman who says, forget the system, I'll build a new one. That's intoxicating to a man who has been crushed by every system he's ever served. But by calling it a dream, Tyrion reveals that even he, the smartest political mind in the room, doesn't fully grasp what Daenerys is saying. Tyrion interprets breaking the wheel as a pragmatic, maybe democratic goal, something achievable through politics and clever alliances. He hears reform, he hears progress. He doesn't realize that Daenerys means something far more radical, She doesn't want to reform the system. She wants to obliterate it and replace it with what? With herself, with a queen so righteous that the wheel doesn't need to exist because she alone will hold everything together. And that misinterpretation, Tyrion's failure to understand the totalizing nature of Daenerys' vision, will haunt him for the rest of the show. It's what leads to his betrayal, his disillusionment, and ultimately his role in her downfall. You know, the tragic irony of this scene only becomes clear at the very end of the show, because the wheel does get broken, but not in the way Daenerys imagined. Daenerys becomes a tyrant. She burns King's Landing. Jon kills her to stop her from continuing the cycle of destruction. And the remaining lords of Westeros, the survivors, the exhausted, the broken, sit down and choose Bran Stark as king. Not through conquest, not through bloodline, through a vote. Again, the Iron Throne is melted by dragonfire. The hereditary monarchy ends. The wheel, in a sense, is broken, but it's broken by the consequences of Daenerys' madness, not by her vision. The very thing she promised to do gets done, but only after she becomes the thing she swore to destroy. That's the cruelest irony the show has to offer. Basically, this scene is the most important conversation in the entire show, and nobody realized it at the time. It's the moment Daenerys articulates her vision, the moment Tyrion signs on to a project he doesn't fully understand, and the moment the show begins its slow, painful journey toward the question it's been asking all along. What happens when a person with good intentions and unlimited power decides that the world needs to be remade? The answer, as Daenerys discovers, as Tyrion discovers, as King's Landing discovers, is fire. It's always, always fire. Now, sitting in that pyramid in Meereen, drinking wine in the warm, fading light, neither of them knows that yet. Daenerys sees a broken world and believes she alone can fix it. Tyrion sees a remarkable woman and believes he can guide her, and both of them are wrong, spectacularly, heartbreakingly wrong. But in this moment, in this one beautiful, doomed moment, they believe. And that shared belief, born in a pyramid in Meereen over cups of wine, is the most dangerous thing in the world.